It has been said by some wise soul in the universe that family is art in its imperfect, loving human form. We understand messiness and are inspired by imperfection, for through these things we learn to grow, to aspire, and to achieve greatness. We learn to thrive and we journey towards success. This is the art of family. So I welcome you to our family, the COTS family, where we create opportunities to succeed.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Aisha Morrell-Ferguson. I'm the Chief Development Officer with COTS, and we're happy to have you here with us for the Art of Family podcast. This podcast is a unique opportunity to inform hearts and minds about what it means to experience homelessness as a family in Detroit, to overcome challenges and barriers related to poverty. And we are often engaging in conversations with partners that are in this work together to help build up the narrative around strong families, strong households. And today I'm excited to be joined by Miss Dara Griffin of the Fatherhood Initiative and Gerald Edwards, one of our directors at COTS. He's the Director of Hospitality who also leads the Fatherhood Initiative engagement here at COTS. Welcome to both of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Dara, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you. And ask you to tell us a little bit about the Fatherhood Initiative, how it got started, just a little background story about that whole initiative, the whole campaign, and what it means.
Sure. I just want to acknowledge that right now my partner in this work is not here. His name is Kevin Bramond. And the origin story of how this work got started really starts with him. He was part of a learning community that I believe the Aspen Foundation was a part of. Kresge was also there, and he had a wonderful presentation and really impacted some minds and hearts around what it means to support fathers and have a father-friendly environment in our systems. He had a great conversation with some representatives from Kresge around this, and the idea to start a cohort focusing solely on supporting fathers and dads and father figures came from that conversation. And so he and I were tapped to put together programming to help support the organizations who are part of the Fatherhood Work Group, the Kresge Next Gen Fatherhood Work Group that's been working together over the last year and a half to better support dads.
That's awesome. And for those that are listening, Kresge Foundation is an amazing partner in this work. And they've helped us, with our next gen focuses, which is, really making sure that we're being intentional about not just supporting and targeting the needs of parents, but also the needs of children and the impact that it has on them beyond the space that they occupy right now. And so it's exciting that Kresge collaborated with you all and that they were able to connect you all with us, like that we were able to actually build this partnership and grow the work that the Fatherhood Initiative is doing in conjunction with what we're doing here at COTS. And it fits so well because family is so important to us. And oftentimes, especially within the space that we occupy, it's no secret that the majority of the families that we collaborate with are oftentimes women-led single-parent households. But there's a father involved somewhere, somehow. There's a father connected to this family. And so being able to encourage families around the involvement of dad in the household and dad among, with the children is so important. And so that's why this initiative is so important to us as well. So Gerald, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just kind of talk about, just your connection with COTS and especially with engaging with the Fatherhood Initiative from the beginning.
Okay. Again, my name is Gerald Edwards. I'm the Director of Hospitality Services here at Peggy's Place, COTS. I've been asked, anointed to take on the leadership from a COTS perspective of the Fatherhood Initiative. And I just totally understand the need for fathers to be fully, not just in the home and not just have a presence, but to be fully engaged with their family, with their families and their children. Because so much, I believe, of what lacks in and what has the suffering ills of our society is because fathers are not rightfully taking, and I'm going to look at it from the perspective of the Bible, the godly perspective of leadership in the home. And that's where I really believe that this fellowshipping with fathers and working with them and trying to provide resources for them to become the fathers that they really want to be. I believe that every father really is desirous of being a good father and have a solid role in their family. And I believe sometimes it's because they don't really, they haven't had a father that they can emulate. So they really don't fully understand their role. They don't really understand the importance of the role. That's one of the things that I'm really adamant about, and that's making sure that the Fatherhood Initiative helps fathers to really see themselves and see themselves soaring and see themselves growing and becoming the leaders in the home that they really are intended to be.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. Something that I heard you say was fellowship. Can we talk a little bit about what fellowship looks like and the benefit of that fellowship for our fathers?
Okay, I believe that fellowship really serves the purpose of having a grassroots, down-to-earth, man-to-man communication one to another, one that is welcoming, one that doesn't pass judgment, but just being in a relationship of expression of, and the only way I can describe that expression is an expression of love for one individual to another, love for the family, and love for what it stands for and how you want to help it to grow and to shine. So the fellowship is really that interaction and that base level communication one to another. And that's what I'm expecting and hoping that we, of us that are leading this initiative, along with father to father, will be in fellowship one to another to be able to play off of one another and to bounce things off of one another, along with gaining and garnering information through some of the resources that we will be providing through speakers and literature and those types of things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Dara, do you mind sharing just from your experience on a national level, from the time that you all started to where you all are now, some of the outcomes that you've seen? Some of the, I know that there's statistics that speak to, the involvement of fathers or roles of fathers, as it relates to the households and families. But what are some of the outcomes that you all have seen thus far since launching this initiative?
Sure. So if I could just kind of go back and talk just a little bit about our approach when
Absolutely.
It comes to, working with fathers. So our approach is highlighting the true narrative of fatherhood.
Yeah.
And for us, the true narrative of fatherhood is that fathers are active, engaged, nurturers, protectors, providers, and vital to the well-being of our children, our families, and our communities. And that too often our systems are not prepared to properly support our fathers because our systems are designed around mothers and children. So to address we're highlighting, we want to highlight the true narrative that there's no dad that I've ever come across that's bragging about not being in the lives of their children.
Right.
There's shame attached to being disconnected to their children. And we also know within this narrative, we want to understand that father's story. What caused that father figure, that dad to become disconnected?
Yeah.
So being curious about the things that happen that cause disconnection between fathers and their children, understanding that there's always a story, and us wanting to support the dads that the dads want to be, that they're becoming. And for those who are not engaged in the lives of their children, how do we help them re-engage? Because that's also a process, right? So there are a myriad of reasons for why dads are not engaged. And sometimes in this fatherhood work, folks get stuck there. But our approach is to acknowledge that most dads are engaged. There's a small subset of fathers who get all the attention for not being there, and then we don't acknowledge the millions of fathers who are there, who are not being supported. And so our work is around supporting the dads who are in the lives of their children and helping support dads who are not in the lives the way that they would like to be, understanding their story, and then unpacking what needs to be done in order for that to happen. The outcomes are the wonderful outcomes that happen when both parents are engaged in the lives of their children. So believe it or not, 50% of parents are fathers.
That's the whole truth.
Right? And so reconstructing our systems in a way that acknowledges that half of the parenting population are men. Absolutely. And half of the parenting population are fathers and father figures. And so a lot of times some of the language around dads is because dad may not be in the house. He's not there. We know that that's not true.
Yeah.
And so redefining what it means to be there, and then asking questions and being inquisitive. So if someone says, this dad isn't there, what does that actually mean? He doesn't live in the same house with his children? Or does that mean he's not engaged? And then being ready to listen to these answers and not just taking answers at face value, really, really digging into what's actually happening in these relationships.
That's so awesome. And you said some things, you said a variety of things there that are just so critical to understand. But even understanding that engagement looks different, household to household, family to family, and being able to allow for space for what that engagement looks like, and understanding why that is the case, family to family. Something that I've heard repeated over and over again, and what I hear you sharing, Dara, is the trauma-informed care approach to what you all do. That and we have to acknowledge, and this is a space that we operate in regularly here at COTS, that we know that there's trauma connected to the circumstance. And so what we've learned, and I've heard this quote said quite a few times over the past few weeks, that the trauma that you do not transform, you transmit. And so oftentimes it's been a matter of people transmitting something that they haven't been able to transform themselves, but opportunities such as the Fatherhood Initiative and other initiatives such as our Passport to Self-Sufficiency framework and so many other initiatives of that nature open the door for people to be able to transform some of that trauma and then be able to triumph over it in new ways, and in ways that very importantly impact the lives of their children so that their children don't then do the same thing. And so being able to reshape that narrative or change that narrative and reshape that narrative, especially in our society, is important. Dara, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the work that you all are doing around photography specifically in helping to change that narrative, because that narrative it's been challenging for some years, and we know that sometimes going online, or if you're in marketing, and I'm a marketing professional by trade, so marketing, oftentimes it's very hard to find content, imagery to support the narrative that is actually a truth. And so talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. So you just said it. So if you go in and do a Google search for Black people or Black families, your options are really limited, right? And so my partner, Kevin Bramond, and myself were able to engage with COTS, the help of Gerald and the wonderful photographer Ethel Rucker, to construct what's called the Detroit Fatherhood Photo Bank. And what this is a almost 200 or maybe over 200 images of Black and brown fathers, mostly with their children of all ages, just being together and illustrating love for each other. These are the type of images that are not often associated with Black men and brown men, because the predominant narrative is that Black and brown men don't take care of their children. We know that that is a lie. So the truth of the matter is, like what I said earlier, is that our Black and brown fathers are engaged. They're there. They're supportive. They're active. And those that aren't want to be. And our approach is, how do we engage all of the dads? So this photo bank is an opportunity for the visual of what we know to be the true narrative of fathers to be out there and seen. So once this photo bank is up and running, and we believe that will be happening by the second or third week of January, nonprofits and other organization will be able to get permission and download these images and use them in their spaces, on their brochures. They can print them out to use on canvases in their spaces. So then these men can see themselves reflected in these spaces and know that these spaces are welcome to them as well.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. And it was exciting to see that unfold and see that happen here. Gerald, you had an opportunity to really engage with the fathers in that particular experience. And so talk to us a little bit about, their take, how they felt participating, what your experience was in executing it. Ethel was amazing. And so, just tell us a little bit about the experience.
Yeah. I just think that for the actual, purpose of this leads to the excitement, and that is to change the narrative of Black and brown fathers. So just that alone brought about a sense of excitement and pride in this whole process. The fathers were, interesting enough, they were extremely excited about this opportunity, and I still owe them a look of some of the photographs. They have just been, every time I run across one, hey, when are we going to get together? So we're now putting things together. We were going to be proceeding forward with a reception for them, but due to a pending storm, tomorrow was going to be our day. So we're going to move it until after the first of the year, but it's just going to increase the level of anticipation and excitement with the fathers. So it was really a rewarding experience to actually just to see the interest level of the fathers, and even just to watch as Ethel was photographing the fathers, just watching the interaction of the fathers with the children. Nothing was really a staged photo. It was just natural interactions between the fathers and their children that she captured. So it was really just an interesting and exciting process for them, and a rewarding, comforting process for me just to be there, to be a part of it, to help organize it and see it playing out with the mindset of recognizing what this photo bank is really going to mean to the greater community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I love photography and the way that photography is able to tell a story. And in this situation, it's telling a very untold story. And so I'm excited to see the photos as they are unveiled. And, with us at COTS, we talk about our art of family. The whole mantra is that family is art in its imperfect, human, loving form. And so I'm super excited to see these family reflections of dads and their children engaged in creative ways. We're going to take a break and chime into some of our sponsors here for a moment, and we'll be back in a moment to finish this conversation. Thank you both for being here, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Art of Family podcast by COTS. COTS exists to create and facilitate opportunities for families in poverty to collaborate, thrive and succeed in building strong households, neighborhoods, and communities. This is accomplished through COTS Passport to Self-Sufficiency. Passport to Self-Sufficiency is COTS poverty reduction and alleviation framework. It is used across all programs, delivered through a whole family approach to support families in developing economic self-sufficiency and stabilized environments in order to create a multi-generational impact and ultimately break the cycle of poverty. To support this mission or to learn more about COTS, our families, or our partners, visit us online at cotsdetroit.org. That's COTS Detroit.org.
Well, thank you for joining us again. We are back with Dara Griffin of the Fatherhood Initiative and Gerald Edwards of COTS Peggy's Place. And we've been talking about the Fatherhood Initiative and our engagement and our collaboration and partnership with them, and the importance of helping to, change the narrative around fathers and fathers' roles in our families, and B, really helping to empower our fathers to embrace their role and do so in a fun, loving, creative way. We've talked a bit about our photo bank and the photos that are going to be released here in the coming weeks, and we're excited about that. So if you missed that, by all means, rewind, check out the first half of this episode. We'd love for you to get caught up on the conversation. As we continue talking, I would love to turn to you, Dara, in relationship to other opportunities for engagement and empowerment for our families. And I know that there's a couple of different things that you all started on the California initiative that we've been adopting here, but I'd love for you just to talk about what broader involvement with the Fatherhood Initiative looks like.
Sure. So in our work in California, specifically in the Bay Area, there's 3 areas that we really focus on, which are systems change, capacity building, and research and assessment. So in our work with the Detroit group, the Detroit cohort, we focused on those 3 areas of work as well. And so the systems change work is really around asking systems to rethink how they see fathers and approach dads, and how our service systems and our system of care is not intentionally leaving dads out, but also are not intentionally serving dads. Mm-hmm. So that's the system change area. The capacity building area is really about the individual work that providers do with fathers and the changes that might need to occur in our thinking when we engage dads, because engaging dads is different from engaging moms. So if your frame for engaging parents is a frame for engaging moms, then there could be a little bit of a disconnect when dads show up. And then the last category of work is the research and assessment. So in Detroit, we held 2 Detroit dad focus groups. So we would consider that some qualitative research about their experiences, accessing services in Detroit, and we got some really good information. And so those are the 3 areas that we worked on with the Detroit Next Gen Fatherhood Work Group. And we got really great information. We also have a survey out right now for the providers who participated in the group. We expect to get really great data from that as well. And then under the capacity building and systems change category, we would put like our direct services to fathers. So one of the direct services that we started in Detroit with the Detroit cohort is what's called Dad Discussions. So Dad Discussions occurs don't let me get it wrong, Gerald. It's every
third Tuesday.
Every 3rd Tuesday of the month from 6 to 7:30.
Correct.
So we got the idea from Dad Discussions. Actually, Kevin's wife came up with the terminology Dad Discussions. And so we started Dad Discussions on the West Coast right during the pandemic. We started in 2020 when everything was shut down, and we knew that dads needed a mechanism to be able to talk about their specific struggles as it related to the pandemic. Some dads were not able to see their children for months because of the quarantine. And so basically it became a safe place for dads to come have discussions about what it means to be a dad, what they need from a support standpoint, emotional support and resources. And so we have worked with the Next Gen Detroit cohort to do dad discussions in Detroit. And so far we've had 2.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Gerald, do you mind sharing just kind of the experience of those dad discussions and what that looks like or what that has looked like so far?
Again, we're in the formative stages of this,
Right.
only having 2, but the actual interaction with the fathers is a good one, obviously, because they are able then to share in this space of what they are looking for, what kind of resources that they need. And when I say by resources, I mean information and communication that we can hopefully provide. So we're right now in those conversations, we're helping to form what is going to be our curricula so that when we go forward, we're able then to start presenting in the areas that the dads have expressed. And we're looking at, I'm just going to give you just kind of a bullet point, navigating family court, navigating family court when there's been a violation of custody agreements, when navigating domestic violence when they've been accused of it. Also in providing information through a father's boot camp for new fathers so that they can kind of understand what to expect with a pregnant partner, what to expect before the birth. And so just to kind of give them some input in areas that we believe is very important. And they've expressed a desire to receive some communications in those areas. So we're still formulating that curriculum, but we're just kind of touching on some of the beginning stages of our meetings starting in January. So
I love that. And I think that it's so critical to have conversations and provide resources and education around those topics, but it's not something that we've seen done in the past regularly for fathers. And so we want to see growth and development in our families as a whole. But if we're not providing the whole family with resources, then we can't expect to see those outcomes. And so this is outstanding. One of the questions that I was going to ask in relationship to engagement, how are we connecting with? I know that, we've got families that are within our Peggy's Place location. We have families that are connected in our Peterborough Arms and our Bursmeyer Manor, and those are different properties that COTS manages. But I understand that this is a community initiative. So talk to me about how families are connected or how they're getting connected with this initiative and where they're coming from.
But we're doing it via Zoom as the actual discussions takes place over Zoom. But we have a host of, within our database, connections to through the various agencies so that every one of the cohort understands what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and giving them connections through we develop a brochure each month. The brochure is developed to highlight the subject for that particular discussion. So that brochure then is distributed through various means. In our shelter here, besides a copy of the brochure placed in the hand of every father, it's also placed on the bulletin board. And so I even misspoke. I guess it was misunderstood that I wanted one of our brochures to be given to the mailman when I asked that it be given to all of the males. And I think there was a little communication issue, but it worked out fine. One of the staff here said, okay, well, and they confronted or approached the mailman with the brochure. He said, hey, I have a lot of men on my route. Absolutely. I'll take some copies and I'll distribute them for you. So
that's awesome.
So there's just a host of ways that we're getting the word out, beside word of mouth and through emails and print.
That's so awesome. So this is available and open for any father that has an interest to participate.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That is awesome.
Yes.
Also, too, Aisha, if I may, one of the areas, like in the cohort work, when working directly with providers, when you look at implementation science, it takes a while for people to change their paradigm around how they are doing their work. And a lot of times people don't study that part. We want to get to the final outcomes and don't kind of pay attention to what it takes to get to that outcome. And so in our over a year of having conversation with the providers, some of that shifting has occurred. And so people who have been part of the cohort have come back and reported that the way that they interact with men at their particular organization has changed.
That's
right?
Awesome.
There's more of an openness, or there's a different kind of invitation around how to be in relationship with the men who are showing up, who are fathers and father figures. So I just wanted to kind of point that out.
That's awesome.
It's part of that 3-part category that I mentioned a little earlier.
Yeah. And I love that. I love how just providing the insight, the knowledge around, this particular framework as a whole, and this just shifting, like you said, shifting that narrative and shifting that perception is helping to open the doors to people being more receptive to processes changing, because that means if the people inside are changing their approach, and that means that they're also taking a look at their processes to be able to shift and change those processes as well, which is so important. Is the Fatherhood Initiative involved in any advocacy work around these things?
In California, my partner, he absolutely has been involved in advocacy work on the county level. State government in California is a little bit different than it is in Michigan. Each county is like a kingdom. And so each county is able to kind of implement different things. So you're across California, you will see from county to county, things are very different. But in the county where my partner lives, Kevin Bremond, is in Alameda County. He came up with what's called a set of father-friendly principles. And he was able to, in his organization there, were able to get the father-friendly principles approved on a county-wide basis for all service provision that's happening that the county provides. And so that was also something that we did with the cohort here as a result of the focus groups that we had with the Detroit dads. And we talked about the focus groups and the findings with the work group. We came up with a set of Detroit father-friendly principles that will be unveiled at Soup City.
That's
and
exciting.
So it's basically a group of guiding principles that help, then they're provider facing, basically that help providers remember if they want to engage dads in a friendly and respectful way, these are some of the things that we should be thinking about.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And as Dara mentioned, Soup City is actually going to be happening January 19th. This podcast will likely be released just before that, but then it will allow people to just kind of tune into that event as well and follow what we're doing with the Fatherhood Initiative moving forward. I would love to, come back and revisit another conversation with you both, and possibly bring in one of our dads to join the conversation and just share their experience and engagement with you. And share how it's changing their family framework. I think that being able to share those stories of triumph and then talk about how each person is taking an active role to reshape that narrative and change it moving forward for the next group. I would love for us to revisit that and have further conversations in the coming months. I really look forward to that. If you would like more information about the Fatherhood Initiative, we challenge you to visit us online, encourage you to visit us online, I'll say, www.cotsdetroit.org/Fatherhood Initiative. We're excited about being able to launch this initiative publicly and share the images of the photo bank and talk about the stories that are that are being born out of this experience, and how families and fathers in particular are being empowered through this experience. Would either of you care to have final remarks?
I'm just happy to have the opportunity just to share about the Fatherhood Initiative and get it. The more connections that we can make with people, the deeper that we're going to be able to get in the penetration of the initiative and the interest and all that is required in order to make it successful. So whatever it takes to make it successful, that's what I'm wanting to be a part of. And I'm happy to have been part of this today to help to move that concept forward.
Awesome.
I'd just like to say thank you to the Kresge Foundation. Thank you to Cheryl and COTS and the leadership at COTS, and to each of the 4 member organizations who gave us the opportunity to work with you to really highlight the true narrative of fathers, which is that they are active, they are engaged, they are nurturers, they're protectors, and they are there.
That's awesome. And there are 2 things. One, we didn't highlight who those 4 organizations are. So do you mind sharing who they are?
Sure. In addition to COTS, Wayne Metro was part of the cohort, also Starfish, Access Community, and Matrix Head Start.
Awesome. All 4 amazing organizations, and we're grateful to be partnered with them in this space. Any plans for the Fatherhood Initiative to expand outside of the California area and the Michigan area?
Absolutely. Kevin and I are open to all of those kinds of opportunities. And we hope that we're able to work with other cities, counties, states, and systems who want to improve the system of care for fathers.
Awesome. Well, for those that are listening, if that's you, we will have information on how you can connect with Dara and Kevin online at cotsdetroit.org/Fatherhood Initiative. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate your partnership. Visit us online for more information about how you can get involved.
Thank you for listening to The Art of Family, a podcast that serves to share triumphs of families overcoming poverty and homelessness. As families journey towards stability, COTS believes there is always beauty to be found along the way. Through partnership, mentorship, and relationship, we all create opportunities to succeed. To support this mission, or to learn more about COTS, our families, or our partners, visit us online at cotsdetroit.org. That's COTS Detroit.org.